Francois Savary, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Donald Trump has described Mr. Milei, who's just been elected Argentine president, as somebody who's going to make Argentina great again. And Bolsonaro, the former Brazilian president, loves him. But we don't choose our supporters. I think it's fair to say the global press has been unanimous in its alarmist reaction to the election result of Sunday evening. So is it really so bad? He doesn't have much power in the two houses, in the lower house and the upper chamber. He only has between 10 and 14% of the seats. So it's difficult to know exactly how much of his policies that he's proposing he can implement.
Totally.
So we're not going to discuss all of them. Let's go through a few of them, though. The big one, obviously, is dollarization of the economy. He wants to reduce government spending, thereby fixing inflation, abandon the central bank, lift currency controls, and abandon trade restrictions. Obviously, I think if he's going to dollarize the economy, abandon the central bank, he will be lifting currency controls anyway, de facto. Right, let's start first of all. Let's talk about dollarization. Why is this such a big deal?
It's such a big deal because, first of all, you need to know the current condition in Argentina. In order to dollarize an economy, you need to have foreign currency reserves to make sure that the plan is realistic. What are the estimates about the need for US dollar reserves to achieve that goal of dollarization? It's about 40 billion US dollar. Those are the estimates that you can read. Currently, Argentina has zero foreign currency reserves. It's connected to the fact that the Peronist government that managed the country for the last 4 years has been a nightmare in terms of economic policy. So this is one of the key elements. If you don't have the means of your objective, then it's very difficult to think about creating a dollarization of the Argentinian economy. Some believe that the bet of Mr. Milei is that the private saving in US dollar could be mobilized to support the idea of dollarization. So it's the feasibility of dollarization that is at stake currently. This is the reason why people are invoking the fact that dollarization is a key issue.
How can this be implemented? How feasible is it?
It is, to an extent, it is feasible. It's something that you can do, but it has major drawbacks. It means that you are completely dependent on the Federal Reserves. So it means that you need to have the same kind of economic cycle as the US. Otherwise, you are going to face major drawbacks. Imagine what happens if you have a full dollarization of the Argentinian economy. The US is going through a deep recession. It means that the central bank in the US is going to slash interest rates, increase the dollar. So it means that your economy maybe does not need that because you are growing significantly and you are not facing recession. So if the two economies are not convergent, then you will create problem. At the end of the day, dollarization is an extension of what happened in Argentina in the 1990s, where they had a peg of 1 peso for $1. One of the key elements that drove the end of the peg was that the two economies had divergent paths, and it created a lot of problem, and it was very, very difficult. They had to scrap the peg. There were huge protests in Argentina, and the president, the then president, Mr. De la Rua, had to leave the presidential palace under threat of the mob.
Nevertheless, there is certain precedence for dollarization or a proxy to that, which would be the peg, for instance. Most countries choose the peg, which seems to be the easiest way of doing this. Wouldn't that be the solution? What are the drawbacks?
As I said, the drawbacks are exactly the same in a way, is that you need to have convergent economies between the economy, the Argentinian economy and the US economy if you have a peg against the US dollar. So you are right. I think that the peg could be a feasible solution to consider, but then you are subject to market anticipation and expectation. If your economic policy in terms of mastering your fiscal deficit, your external deficit are not good enough, the market is going to attack the peg. And then it means that you can have speculation. This is exactly what happened in the 1990s. And at what point the reserve that were accumulated by the central banks over a certain period of time, suddenly they decreased. You can't defend the peg anymore. And the peg had to be abandoned because it was not feasible to continue.
What are the social costs of applying a dollarization of the economy?
But at the end of the day, there is a social cost because, as I said, you need, and it's part of the plan of Milei. When you look at his proposal, what does he want to do? He wants to reduce the importance of the state in the economy. He wants to privatize some public company, YPF, banks, and etc. So what does it tell you? I need to deal with the budget deficit. The budget deficit, in order to cut it, even more after the Peronist era of the last 4 years, it means that you will have to reduce welfare states, you will have to reduce energy subsidies. So it means that the social cost is going to be important. You know, at the end of the day, Milei wants to reduce the spending in terms of GDP by 15%. It's a huge amount of money. And in order to do that, it means that you have to cut into social spending.
So what are the reactions on the markets since the announcement of the presidential election result on Sunday? Let's start with the peso, for instance.
Alors, the peso, I didn't check the peso itself. I checked the peso bonds because, yesterday was a national day in Argentina. Market will be open today, but it was a bit, the peso is going to be devalued at the end of the day. What is interesting is to see what happens on the peso on the US dollar debt that is quoted in New York yesterday. It went up. And what is interesting is the companies that are quoted in New York, YPF and banks. YPF is up 40% on the New York stock market, and banks are up between 17 and 20%. So the first reaction by market participants on available market where Argentinian assets are quoted has been positive.
What is the bond trading at, the dollar bond on Argentine debt?
It took the dollar bond. I have the example of a bond 2030. It was quoted at 30 cents per dollar. It lost 30% in 1 year, and yesterday it was up 5%.
Okay, so it's not quite. Yeah, okay, so it's just recovered slightly. It hasn't.
It's recovered slightly. It's not a huge, massive, and it's logical. Investors are not crazy. If you're real investors, you have a lot of uncertainties about what is going to happen. People need to understand. He doesn't have a political majority. Mr. Milei just got elected president, but the parliament is under the rule of Peronist and regular party because Mr. Milei does not have a real party. So you have a lot of political uncertainty. Don't consider that the Peronists are over. They still are managing to control a lot of the governors in the different states of Argentina. They are very implemented in the population. They have a huge power on unions. So you have a second thing there. Peronists can be a trouble for this government. So you have political uncertainty. You also have a kind of risk on the social side because once the people, and I agree, they have elected Mr. Milei with the highest majority ever for a president since 1983. So people are convinced that Milei is the solution, but then he will have to come out with some concrete measures to implement this plan. Maybe then you will have social unrest coming because people will realize that it will have a huge cost, even if you need to adjust the economy and take some strong measures. So I think that people and investors realize that there is a lot to wait for before you can really consider that everything is going on the right path for Argentina. It's a long road in front of him.
So I think what you're saying is that potentially the ideas he has, the measures he wishes to implement, could be useful, but they're probably very, very difficult and maybe impossible to put in place.
Mr. Milei is very well known for going for a very extreme solution. Maybe we are going, but and I don't know, and I agree with you in a way. There was a very negative reaction by people to his election in the media. But this guy is always going, because it's the way he won the election, by taking extreme position, by making the buzz, and etc. Maybe somebody who is more realistic than we think. I think that in the plan that he has, you have some good measures, and you can't avoid them. It's not possible for Argentina to continue to print money, to live with 140% inflation, which could go higher. It's no more possible. The state is bankrupt, this economy is bankrupt, and you need to act. In the proposal that he has, you have some extreme measures. Maybe he's going to be more moderate in implementing them. The fact that we will have to create a coalition will also maybe lead to more moderate measures with the rightist party and etc. And we will come out with a plan that is feasible. I'm not saying that it's not feasible. In this extreme version, I don't believe it is feasible. Is it possible to manage a change in the Argentinian economy? I believe it is feasible, but we need to see and to observe with caution how he is going to implement the measures.
Francois Savary, it's been lovely talking to you as ever. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.